Manny, thank you so much. That ChatGPT is really something. So first of all, Larry Carin, I'm the Provost, and but I also have done a lot of work in AI, a lot of research in AI, and also 2 startup companies that have brought the technology to the real world. So, AI is not a new field. If you look at the original neural networks, which are today making such an impact, they date to, at least conceptually, to the 1960s. So we're talking about over 60 years of technology. And over the many decades, there have been what the people in the field of AI call the seasons of AI. So people heard that terminology, the seasons of AI. And the reason that terminology is used is that over the years, over the last 3-4 decades, there have been moments, glimmers, that AI could really do something important. So that, there'd be somebody who would do something, it would be very impressive, and then we would enter into spring and summer, joy. AI is going to change everything. And then the technology would be brought to the real world, for example, to energy, and it would fall on its face. And then we would head into fall and winter. And then somebody else would come along and say, okay, I got it figured out now, and I have solved this for this problem, and it's quite amazing, and we head back into summer, so much hype, and then again it goes into the real world, it fails, and we're back into winter. And the field of AI went through at least 3 cycles, and the last winter was in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. During that period of time, if you were to use the expression neural networks in a conference in machine learning, and by the way, the field was called machine learning, not AI. There were people doing AI, but that was like overly ambitious, right? That we would never actually have artificial intelligence. There were people who were doing that, but most of the, serious work was called machine learning. So by the early 2000s, literally in a machine learning conference, if you were to say you were using neural networks, you would be laughed out of the room. And so in the late 2000s, it was the next group who felt, they had it figured out. And they wanted to come and bring these new, these old ideas forward again. But they knew that if they said neural networks, they would be laughed out of the room. Their papers would not be accepted. They would not be invited to speak. So they had to invent a new term. And so that term is called deep learning. And so if you ask, what is the difference between deep learning and neural networks? The answer is very little. And from a technological standpoint, little has changed, except for 2 very important things. But in any case, deep learning came along because the people, they literally could not even get an opportunity to speak if they didn't change that name. And now what's happened over the last decade is extraordinary, right? So the first big thing was something called ImageNet. So there's a data set of images, 1,000 different types of labels for the images, and over 1 million images with which to train. So the size of the training set, 1 million images, was bigger than anything that we had before. And that was because of the access of the iPhone and the digital images. We had images. By the way, during these seasons of AI, it wasn't clear that we were going into winter because the technology was bad or because something was missing. You couldn't answer that question, right? But to their credit, the people, and Jürgen Schmidhuber, a colleague, will speak tomorrow. And he's one who has been through all the seasons. And so it took some confidence and belief to fight through this, which they did, he did, and others. But in any case, with the ImageNet, this was one of the first big events, because with this million images of training, 1,000 different classes, the AI, or the machine learning, could achieve performance that was better than the performance of humans. So this was a very big deal. Second big thing was something called AlphaGo. Right, so for those of you who are familiar with the game Go, it's a very popular game in Asia and South Korea. But my understanding is that there are professional Go players, and there are actually schools of Go. Like, this is how important this is. And the idea is that the game of Go is far more complicated than chess, and that a machine could never beat a human. And using reinforcement learning, which Manny talked about, the technology, deep learning and reinforcement learning, was not only able to beat a human at the game Go, was able to beat the best human player in the world in Go 4 or 5 times in a row. This was a big deal. But still, the game Go is a long way from doing something real. Still very impressive, but it's not, who knows what you could do with that. This ChatGPT is a different animal, right? When you see what Manny just showed, and you guys have seen many other things, this is, in my view, extraordinary. And now I think we are doing AI, artificial intelligence. One thing that that people say, well, it's not exactly intelligence. It's not the way a brain works, a human brain works. It's a black box, right? I'd rather trust my surgeon to tell me to read my pathology. And the question I ask is, well, how does the surgeon's brain work? And why isn't that a black box? You know what I mean? I don't care how, I just want the answer to be right. And so my point is that this idea that AI has to be extraordinarily explainable, while if you ask your average genius how they came up with the answer, they can't tell you. Right? So this is something to think about, like the degree to which the results need to be explainable. This is something that is being thought about a lot in AI these days. But in any case, in my view, in my humble opinion, we will not go into a deep winter again. This time is for real. And so the question that you may have, some of you may ask it, but you already may have come to it yourself. Why is it, why now? Why not in 1990s, 1980s, early 2000s? Why now? And there's really 2 reasons. Number one, the access to digital data at scale. The iPhone and things like the iPhone and the internet. Because, Polaroids, images used to be analog, right? They weren't digital. And so the internet, digital books, and your iPhone, these had a profound impact from the standpoint of constituting digital data, which in 1960, when neural nets were originally developed, of course, was inconceivable. But in addition to that, the access to computing power, GPUs. So when you put these 2 things together, amazing computational resources, graphical processor units, with digital data at scale, and there have been developments in AI. And so the neural networks today are not the same as they were in 1960. But the basic idea is there. When you put this all together, amazing things happen. And so now, while we're not, in my view, likely to go into winter again, the big challenge is now taking this technology and bringing it to real-world impact. And there already are several applications of that. The ChatGPT, I think, is just amazing. For those of you who read the New York Times, the digital New York Times, yesterday there was a big article on the front page about the use of AI for pathology and the impact that it's making there in radiology, in medicine. Now, we, KAUST, we are in Saudi Arabia. We are the global center of energy. And so, and we also have a lot of excellence at KAUST in AI. You see the KAUST AI initiative. We like to say AI in it. That's for the AI initiative. When you bring the excellence of the CCRC, which the CCRC is an extraordinary center, and it is a global leader, and that, easily top 5 in the world. And you take that with AI at KAUST and the focus of the Ministry of Energy within the kingdom and one of the premier companies in the world, Saudi Aramco, you put that together, magic can happen. And so this conference, Thibaut and Manny, thank you so much for your leadership in putting this together. Extraordinarily timely. This is truly, I think, the premier time to be studying AI. There's no question it is real. Saudi Aramco and Saudi Arabia and KAUST have an opportunity to be the global leaders in how AI can transform energy. And I don't have to tell you how important it is for us to rethink energy, in the context of climate change, et cetera. But of course, Saudi Arabia is not the only place that's thinking about this stuff. I know that there are several visitors from around the world who came to this conference. So I want to welcome all of you to KAUST. For those of you who are here, for the first time, please look around, walk around, get to know the place. KAUST is an extraordinary place. I hope that you have an opportunity to see Saudi Arabia a little bit more. In other words, not just KAUST, Aula and other such things. So this is an amazing time, I think, for AI. It's an amazing time for AI in energy. It's a very exciting time for Saudi Arabia as it engages in its transformation through the Vision 2030 that KAUST is playing a very key role in. So I wish I could sit with you guys for the next 3 days. This is going to be a great conference. You have a tremendous list of speakers. I did look, and it's amazing. So you guys are all amazing, and all of you are here, I think, are very fortunate. So I wish you a great conference, and that's it. Thank you.